From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Oh, the weather outside is fine.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, slow start out of the portal, but a strong weekend for the Noles. What's it all mean? Corey on a heater against Kirk Herbstreit, and a former star lands an SEC program. Deja vu? Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it, take it. Vitamins, nutrients. It's going to be a long and great week, everybody. The holiday season is finally here. Stay properly energized, properly nutritionalized. Just made up a word right there, Corey. Yeah. Do it with a shot of Vitamin Energy. You shake it, you take it. It's not even 2 fluid ounces. Tastes delicious. 260 milligrams of all-natural caffeine. That's going to get you going from the first time you wake up and start having to assemble all these crazy gifts for your children. It'll keep you calm. The mood. Yeah. What's the craziest thing you ever had to assemble on Christmas Day for Brady Clark, Corey Clark?
A gaming chair. It wasn't crazy. I think a normal person would have done it in about 8 minutes, but it took me an hour and a half. And then when I realized the mistake I'd been making, it literally took 25 seconds to fix it. But in those 90 minutes, I wanted to. I don't know what I wanted to do. I was looking for anything to punt. It's very, very frustrating. Because you normally, I'm not good at that stuff. That was a Shanna thing, and now it's a Stephanie thing. Well, not that I buy Brady anything that requires putting together anymore. But yeah, that was always more. I'm horrible at that stuff, so it'd usually be Shanna that was putting the stuff together.
Did John or Sharon put your presents together when you were a child?
I think it was a tag team effort, and I think like most parents, they had some arguments. Okay. Trying to put stuff together.
Was it your fault they got divorced? Did they buy you something in the Christmas of '84 that did something?
It was mostly my fault. My mom said it wasn't, but my dad always gave me a look like, yeah, it was, man. Come on, you know why we got divorced? No, it was because they weren't compatible, Aslan. They just weren't compatible people.
Well, if they had Vitamin Energy mood, who knows how everything would have worked out, kids. You have it. Take advantage of it. VitaminEnergy.com. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminoles sports source. Hope you've been tuning in throughout the weekend, refreshing the premium recruiting board. Michael Langston camped out on the bench, breaking recruiting news left and right. I was trying to think of the proper metaphor, Corey. We talked about the other day where, this many times is going to be a little bit outdated by the time you listen to this at 10 o'clock in the morning, noon, depending on when you listen to it. But you got to be at warchant.com. Like, we are the protein shake to your muscle-building journey, everybody. You still need to eat well, and you need to eat square meals regularly throughout the day, and that's warchant.com. That's where all the meat and potatoes is.
Yeah.
We're just a nice little touch to it all. Wake Up Warchant. So hope you've been tuned into all that sort of stuff. Let's get to it, Corey Clark. Real quick, you're doing all right, though, I assume? Yes?
I'm good. Thanks for asking, Aslan. I hope you're doing well, too.
Yeah, man.
Good.
The lady made me dinner last night. I love it. It's awesome. It's so nice.
Good to have a lady. It's good to have a lady in your life, isn't it?
It is. Pretty cool. How did Michael Penix do real quick? I didn't even keep up with it.
I liked it. I liked the way he looked. I'll be honest with you. His only interception was because Kyle Pitts just basically deflected it, kneed it right to the DB in the end zone. Other than that, I thought he was very, very good.
Okay. All right, there we go. Bright future.
So, and he plays the Commanders on Sunday night, the Falcons and Commanders. And I'll go ahead and say it. Whoever wins that game, whether it's him or Jane Daniels, that's probably your Rookie of the Year.
Okay. Yeah. I like it. Almost as much as the recruiting effort that Florida State put on this past weekend here, Corey.
Big time.
I don't want to name any names, but somebody texted me on Friday, and they're like, dude, you think they're going to get over 3.5 commitments this weekend? And I didn't really lean too hard into it because there was some stuff that happened like on Thursday where, they were missing out on some guys. And I was like, all right, maybe I was a little bit too overly optimistic about that. But no, man, Mike hit it. He did it for us. Deontay McCray, defensive end from Western Kentucky, out of the portal. Randy Pittman, tight end out of UCF, who's originally, as a high school player, was committed to Florida State. Adrian Medley, offensive lineman, need those from UCF committed. And then I don't want to call it the cherry on top because that would say that it's just kind of all for garnishment and for decoration, and it's not. It's It's a huge piece of this puzzle that, up to 10 days ago, Corey, when I was a little bit apprehensive about how things were coming out the gates for Florida State in the portal, it just felt like they kind of painted themselves in a corner to where they had certain targets, and boy, they needed to hit those targets to make this class look really good. One of them was Deuce Robinson, son of Dominic Robinson of 4th and 14 fame, 2003, the original 4th and 14.
Yeah, that's
Deuce
right.
Robinson commits to Florida State on Sunday evening as well. Nice little haul for the Noles this past weekend.
Yeah, it is. Deuce Robinson was we weren't sure. You knew you had a good chance at him, not just because of the Dominic Robinson connection, but the fact that he was actually coming to Florida State and visiting all the way out from California, grew up in Arizona, and then the fact that he was here for a 2-day visit was a good sign. He didn't just bounce after a day; he was here for 2 days. He was at the basketball game, at least for a little while on Saturday. I guess we could talk about that at the end of the show. That was not great. But, I think, we've talked a lot about what are they going to add? What are they going to end up with? 40 new players, 50 new players? Right now, I think with the 20 high school kids, how many transfers is that now, Aslan? 8, maybe?
Let's see here. I got a list in front of me here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think that's 9.
Okay, so they've added 29 new players. But the Deuce Robinson for sure, and then the offensive linemen. I think those are the most important from this weekend because you got to be better up front. I think the Western Kentucky D end. To me, when you look at those numbers, there's nothing that wows you there. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, he's going to be a game wrecker. No. He's a body. He's a depth piece. He might end up being pretty good. I don't know. I don't expect him to be anything special, but not everybody get out of the portal is going to be special. You need people on the team. You just need guys on the team. And so there are some that are depth pieces and some that are pieces. And Deuce Robinson is a piece. Like, he is a guy that is going to be, in my opinion, is going to be starting from day one. He's going to be penciled in as a starter anyway. And that is a deep threat, a big body. When you have a quarterback that maybe isn't the most accurate in the world, it's nice to have 6'5" and 6'6" to throw to. Because then you don't have to be perfect. Thomas Castellanos is far from a perfect thrower of the football. Well, you don't have to be a lot of times when you're throwing to 6'6". And I like that you have that physicality outside. You have a guy that's made plays in big games. He's produced. Now, he's not been an 1,000-yard receiver, but he's produced. I think he's got 6 or 7 or 8 touchdowns in his career at USC. He's played big boy football. He's also, to me, it looks like a pretty willing run blocker, which is absolutely what you need. You just need that mindset, man. You just need the mindset. And I think he does have that mindset. So, and he's a Nole. Dad was a Nole. He's a Nole. That's good to know. And hopefully he works out better than the last legacy recruit they have that came here after 2 years at another school. But I do think he will. I think the difference between him and Marvin Jones, other than obviously the positions they play, is that Marvin really didn't do much of anything at Georgia in his 2 years. I think Deuce has proven he can play at this level, right? Don't you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, man. Graded out at 74.3 this past year on PFF, which, again, just one piece of data. We don't put all our eggs into this basket here. Did get open 4 times and caught 90 yards and a touchdown against Tony White's defense against Nebraska. So that's got to say something.
Well, yeah, exactly right, buddy. And I think with the Pittman one too, man. That's a unique one because he produced a lot. I think he had 35 catches this past year. He knows the offense. I assume he's a pretty good blocker because at UCF you have to be able to block. That's what they do. They run the ball a lot. And I think, you already got 2 pretty good tight ends. Getting him, does that make you think that Amari Williams might legitimately be moved to like defensive end full time? You went and got Randy Pittman in the portal?
He has to, right? That's the only way it makes sense in my opinion. Otherwise, I mean, it's a luxury, which it's nice to have luxuries, but, would I rather have Randy Pittman or like an elite offensive tackle? I'd probably rather have the offensive tackle, but Amari Williams, again, I think I was telling Ira that I'm just like, there's so much going on after that early signing period that, nobody even really batted an eye when Mike Norvell said at the podium, like, yeah, Amari's going to, he's going to be at defensive end. There were so many other things that we were worried about and who's getting hired and who are they bringing in To me, that was a really huge kind of piece of news because he seems like he was going to be a really productive tight end. So they must feel really good about what he can be as a defensive end to take that part away from the program, if you will. But if you get a guy like Randy Pittman, if they felt like they were going to get some, they did go after some tight ends, and I like Pittman more than any of the other tight ends they were involved with. So that's one of the weird things about this portal. You feel like the first guys in, you need to get them as soon as you possibly can, but as the days turn into weeks, some other guys jump in later on. And, there's the kid from A&M that ended up going to Arkansas. I'd much rather have Randy Pittman than him. So
and then let's start thinking about the offense a little bit. And look, I want to qualify this by saying the most important part of this offense moving forward, in my opinion, other than quarterback, is the offensive line. And I still think we have no idea what that's going to be. They've gotten some guys that Herb Hand has coached. That's nice. But I have no idea what this offensive line is going to be. I know it'll be better because it can't be worse. But you start looking at the skill guys now, assuming Landon Thomas is still here in the spring. And I say assuming, not that I know any inside knowledge. It's just you never know with the portal. But Landon Thomas is still on the roster. Now you got Randy Pittman on the roster. So you're set at tight end with receiving tight ends. These guys are – Landon Thomas could be special. Randy Pittman's proven he can play at this level.
And
You've got I don't know that Biscuit's going to be like a passing threat
catcher,
for
but
you.
You're good at tight end for sure.
Yes, right. You're set at tight end. You would seemingly you're set at tight end. Then now on the outside, we'll see what the guys that played this year, if they're any good at all. We just don't know. I mean, I liked LaWayne McCoy in practice. Didn't really see anything not that we could with this season. But you didn't see anything special from him. Elijah Moore never played. I don't know what they have a receiver. I do know that Deuce Robinson's going to play.
Yes.
And that's a big upgrade.
Yes.
So now you feel good about your pass-catching tight ends. You feel good at least about one wide receiver spot. I don't know what Hakeem Williams is going to be. I'm not going to sit here and say he's lived up to a 5-star billing so far. But outside, you think about it, man. Your skill position guys, you've got 2 wide receivers. If we started right now, I would say, wouldn't you think that Hakeem and Deuce are your 2 starting wide receivers? Maybe. Pencil them in.
Yeah,
not in zone.
I'm on the Jordan Scott train, man, the 6'7" JUCO
guy. So either way, you got big bodies for Castellanos to throw to. But let's say that Hakeem is a starter as well. Well, again, the rankings don't matter as much once college football actually starts and they start playing. But 1 5-star wideout on one side, 1 5-star wideout on another side, a 5-star tight end in Landon Thomas, a almost 5-star running back in this freshman that's coming in. You've got real kind of weaponry now at the skill positions. I think Deuce Robinson is more proven than Malik Benson. I think we know what Landon Thomas can be if he's in an offense that's even competent.
I feel better about Landon Thomas than I did Kyle Morlock. Although I know I shouldn't.
Right.
I don't know Kyle Morlock. He did have a good preseason, but Landon Thomas to me seems like a little bit more. I don't want to say dynamic. That's such a lazy term, but I just feel better.
But he is. He's more of a playmaker. So you start to think, okay, combine that with a quarterback that can run at an elite level. Well, you've got some stuff now to work with, I think. Just the thought of Robinson, Hakeem, Jordan Scott, the new running back, the tight ends. Maybe one of these other receivers can step up.
Jaden Boggs, too, again, productive
guy.
Yeah, man,
a true freshman, but a guy that has a knack for catching the football. So you start to feel pretty good about the skill guys, but it's still early, and I'm qualifying it. I don't want to get too excited because I'm sure you could replay a podcast from last February. I'd be like, you got Malik Benson, and don't forget about Jaden Lucas and all these other guys. And Lucas got hurt, but it just never panned out. So I'll take it easy. But I like what they've done with the skill players on the offensive side. I don't know if they're done, but you really like what they're doing there. I got to see some more on. I don't know what the offensive line is exactly going to be. I'd like a few more bodies there. I'd absolutely like at least one more body on defense, on the defensive line. From the portal I'm talking about. But yeah, man, that's a nice weekend for Mike Norvell. Got dudes that can play at this level. Got Division I football players. I don't think the Western Kentucky kid's going to be a star by any means. Probably won't even be a starter, but that is a depth piece. I think all the other guys you got are probably starting for you against Alabama.
Well, let me see. I had him pulled up here a second ago. Yeah, there was like Sun Belt Rookie of the Year. Deontay McCray was, but otherwise, did not have a really good win rate when it came to pass rush, which is what you need right now on the edge. But maybe he's a guy they think is somewhat of a project. I think he's got plenty of tread on the tire in terms of being able to play some more football here. No, he's going to be eligible next year draft-wise. Yeah, I mean, 191 pass rush reps, only 21 pressures. Not ideal.
Yeah.
But he's played a lot of football, so, I mean, we'll trust in Tony White for right now that he can pick things out. Real quick, though, to stay with the offense, though, Corey, I know we don't want to dive too much into the offensive line because we can't say right now like 5 guys, although I think, we were mixing and matching guys even going into July last year, but they got the Gunnar Hansen kid from Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I don't know if his paperwork's in everybody. I know everyone's freaked out about that because they've been tweeting and Mike Norvell's had statements about everything.
Oh, yeah, they haven't said anything about him.
No.
Have they? Oh, that's right.
There's a small part of super online Twitter that's constantly like, why not? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Which I get it. Like, it is a little bit weird. I mean, everybody else is getting these really quick announcements done through the school's not sports information department any longer, the public relations department. But anywho,
right.
So let's say that this kid he does have Florida State offensive tackle listed in his bio on Twitter for whatever that's worth. So
that's worth something, I think.
Let's say he's the left tackle.
Yeah.
Adrian Medley, who played at UCF, on the watch list here, Matt Lasseri, you have him listed as a tackle, but I think he's a guard.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a guard.
He said left guard is what he's penciled in as.
Yeah.
So you got left tackle Gunnar Hansen, left guard Adrian Medley, center, who knows, Otto, Rizzi. They went after a couple guys at center. None of them worked out, so I don't know if they're on plan, whatever right now. But then, Richie Leonard's going to probably be your other guard.
Yeah.
Well, I thought Richie Leonard was your left guard going into last year. But anyhow, Leonard's still sticking around here, it sounds like. His dad tweeted out something really encouraging about his excitement for what Mike's put together here the last few days. So that's, you got 3/5 pretty firmly set. And then your other tackle, they hosted a kid from, Central Connecticut State.
They also hosted a kid from Rice, right, this weekend?
That kid is, Ethan Onianwa.
Okay, nice.
That kid's a player.
Okay.
They can
the
get
kid
that.
from Rice?
Yes.
Okay.
That kid's a real player. And then Ratrell Perry is the player from, I think, Central Connecticut State. So they're still in the mix for some tackles, which, again, it kind of lets you know that, I don't know how good Herb Hand feels about what he has in the cupboard here, but why should he? Anyway, all that to say, Corey, it just sounds like the offensive line is going to look drastically different than it did last year, which is all you really can ask for right now.
And I'll go as far to say that Herb Hand isn't doing this blindly. And again, I whatever. I'm not going to even qualify it anymore. This guy's been doing it a lot longer than Alex Atkins. He's been doing it at a higher level than Alex Atkins. And I trust what he wants to see. I trust he knows what he wants to see on tape better than Alex Atkins did. And I really don't know how anybody could argue that because the last 5 years are proof of that. Like Ferguson, just name the ones that he brought in. Leonard was okay, but none of the guys he brought in, save for Dylan Gibbons, portal-wise, even going back to Casey Roddick, like those weren't great fits. Those guys weren't great football players. Jeremiah Byers didn't get any better when he was at Florida State. No. He didn't seem to be very good here. And then also all the guys he's recruited haven't been good here. So he didn't know what he was – it doesn't appear like he knew what he was looking for or evaluated at an elite level. Evaluated, developed, however you want to frame it. The offensive line at Florida State the last 2 years, and in this year in particular, was dreadful. And that all goes back to the offensive line coach. Either he's not coaching them well, which I don't know that that's the thing. I genuinely think it's just he wasn't evaluating well. This guy, Herb Hand, has been doing it. I mean, he was at Vanderbilt with James Franklin, right?
Yes.
And then went to Penn State with Franklin. Yes. Then went to Texas, and then was at Auburn with Gus, and then was at UCF with Gus for 4 years. So he's been doing this for 20 years. I trust that he looks at a guy. I guess I give him the benefit of the doubt, and I say, okay, I hear Central Connecticut State, and I'm like, all right, man, okay. But I trust that he's looking at the film and looking at the kid and knowing he knows better just because he's been doing it longer. He's older than Alex Atkins. He's also coached at an elite level longer than Alex Atkins, that he knows what fits in his system better than Alex Atkins did. And so if he goes and gets a kid from Vanderbilt, that we don't know if he got him. Where's the paperwork, Gunner? But if not Gunner, what's his name? Is Gunnar Hansen?
Gunnar Hansen.
Okay, I was thinking of Gunnar Henderson, the Orioles.
I think I typed his name out, or I called him Gunnar Nelson.
Oh, okay.
Nelson
the
brothers.
Nelson, the band, the rock band from the late
right.
80s.
That's
Yeah,
right.
great. Guys, if you don't know what Nelson, go look them up. They were as hardcore a rock band as you're going to find. Right, Aslan?
Yeah,
it was like Iron Maiden on steroids. Yeah. But so I just trust that he knows that maybe he wasn't great at Vanderbilt.
No, he was. He started a lot of games at Vanderbilt, man.
Wasn't very good, though, I don't think. I mean, he wasn't like an all SEC type player.
Right.
He was a starter, though. But he can look at that guy and go, yeah, I think I've watched the film of the guys that are currently on the roster. I see this guy. This guy is better than those guys. Let's go get him. The UCF kid, obviously, he knows. He has a history with. But I trust it, man. I just trust what he's doing, just like I trust Malzahn more than Norvell when it comes to just running a competent offense, because we all saw what Norvell did last year. His offense was the exact opposite of competent. So I think that's what gives me hope when they go and get two more guys. You look at that offensive line, and there's the guys you named. It might be no Florida State kids on it, and I mean Florida State like recruits. It all might be transfer portal guys, including Richie Leonard in that group. But I think this guy knows how to put together an offensive line that can at least become competent quickly. And that's what I trust Herb Hand to do. Alex Atkins clearly wasn't doing that well. So I'm excited that he'll have an average, not average. I'm not excited about average. I'm excited that he's getting the pieces that he knows he needs. And hopefully he'll develop them, and they'll be a good offensive line.
Hopefully you folks are going to have a Merry Christmas. Get in the holiday mood by being in a good mood. Always in a good mood when you're at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, everybody. You didn't know where I was going with that, everybody. I didn't either. Sometimes I just winged this stuff. Speaking of which, their wings, best in the city of Tallahassee, I say, Corey Clark. CPTallybar.com, the website, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Holiday hours, Corey? Are they gonna open late at night after everyone's done and sick of hanging out with their family? Is Bill going to provide safe harbor for some people in the area, or is that just a Thanksgiving thing?
I'm not. It's a good question. I know I asked him. He said Christmas Eve they close at 6 or 8 on Christmas Eve. I'm not sure about Christmas. I think Christmas they're just closed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, get there before Christmas, everybody. Get your wings, play some billiards, throw some darts, have some cold beverages. Watch a Monday night game tonight on the Vegas wall of television screens at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Bill's awesome, dude. Nole fan for life. Nole alum.
Yep.
Doing it for 18 years at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Y'all watch Bar Rescue. It's tough to keep these things running for 18 months, let alone 18 years. He's doing something right. Go check it out for yourself. Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Shake it and take it. Sip the juice. All right, Corey, I got to be Aslan here for a second.
Oh, no. Here we go. Are you? Let me guess. Are you going to defend Kirk Herbstreit?
Oh, no, we'll do that.
Okay, all right.
Well, I mean, what are we doing? Do we want the best teams? Do we want the – I'm just kidding.
Right, thanks.
Most deserving. Mildly concerned, after all that stuff that we said about the offensive line, some curious things happened since the last time we talked. The thing that really kind of caught my eye first off was the Ole Miss offensive lineman that they had on a 2-day visit this past weekend, Micah Pettis. According to multiple sources on the Ole Miss beat, he was dismissed from the team. There was no reasoning provided. Apparently, after the Egg Bowl game, he was dismissed. He countered that on Twitter and said that he was not dismissed and said that's just a false narrative. But what really I just thought was bizarre was people who know and are in that sphere, in that space when it comes to NIL, people that have worked in personnel departments at college programs, Corey, had tweeted out with pretty good authority that Micah Pettis was gonna get between $1.5 to $1.8 million from a Big 12 team already had an offer out there for him.
Oh.
And Florida State went ahead and decided to bring this kid in. And these kids don't show up for free. You still have to kind of spend money to make money, if you will. And these kids get rewarded for showing up on campus. I just can't believe they would, I don't want to call it waste time, but kick the tires on a guy that had an offer that seemed pretty plausible out there at that dollar figure, which I can't imagine Florida State has had anybody on their roster that's ever made that much money, let alone an offensive tackle with maybe a little bit of a spotty sort of exit from Ole Miss. So that was a weird one. They're clearly interested in him. They brought him in ahead of some of these other guys. But then when we look at what they did at center, Corey, where Caden Kittler, who was at UCF, comes to campus, they brought him in quickly.
Yeah,
he commits to Arkansas. That's after they lost former Arkansas center Addison Nichols, who was on campus. He goes to SMU. Keegan Tross was a player out of Wake Forest that they were on quickly, and I think he was going to try to make it to Tallahassee. He ends up canceling it, goes and commits to Mizzou. Marcellus Marshall, who was an offensive lineman at UCF, and listen, they brought him in before they brought in Adrian Medley, which take it for whatever it's worth. Again, and from talking to Michael about this stuff, Corey, I mean, usually when they bring guys into the same position as you, and they bring one guy in first, or they kind of want him a little bit more. He's more of a priority. Marshall commits to Minnesota over Florida State. I don't know where he's from. Maybe he's from the Midwest. Maybe I should have looked that up before I brought that up. But I am mildly concerned. He's from Morgantown, West Virginia. I am mildly concerned that while they are getting guys, and listen, they have to, if they get the Rice transfer, if they get Ethan Oninawa, all this becomes completely moot. But it just feels like I'm so glad we get to watch practice, Corey. I'm going to land the plane on this quickly, I promise you. I'm so glad we get to watch practice because now there's so many things that people say online about, like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? And it's like, hey, man, like, we're at practice. We see why they're sticking with this guy or they're not putting this guy into the games. I really wish I could be in these war rooms and kind of look at the board they have and the names they're pulling off and the names are moving up and down to really see who they prioritize. Because if we're just going on a first in, first out kind of basis, they have not hit on the offensive line that they prioritize. But what does that ultimately mean, though, I guess, Corey? I mean, they are transfers, so they have put a lot of film out there, so you probably have a better idea than a high school player. But, they keep bringing in bodies, so clearly it's a position of need, so they're not going to sit there and lick their wounds. So I guess I can't criticize them too much because they are being men of action and getting things done. But it just doesn't seem like they probably got anybody that they want to prioritize at either offensive tackle or center right now.
Maybe, or it's maybe like, I think there's some there are decisions that have to be made because, again, we'll talk about this like grown-ups. There are dollar figures that are being offered. There are dollar figures that are being asked for. And let's say a center comes in from UCF, and the coach here knows how good or not good that center is because he just coached him. And he's here on a visit, so it's not like he's not interested. But I'm sure there's a price. And maybe with a budget, you're like, look, man, we're not paying you that much. Go get your Walton money because we're not going to pay you that much because you're not that much better than the guy that's already here, whoever Herb Hand thinks that to be, or our second guy on the list. And our second guy on the list isn't going to ask what you're asking for, and you're not good. You're not so much better than him that we have to get you at all costs. It could be something like that, man. I don't know that. I always think when it comes to this, like somebody chooses Arkansas over Florida State. Why? Why would anybody in the history of football go play at Arkansas instead of Florida State or Minnesota instead of Florida State? Either the interest wasn't mutual or maybe there's a better chance to play, I guess, whatever, or the money was offered. There's more money offered. I think with the guy that went to Minnesota, maybe Florida State wasn't all that in on him. They weren't that excited about him, so they offered him not a lot of money. And then maybe the Arkansas blew their offer out of the park. We just don't know. It's why it's hard to know, right? Like I don't think they're not doing their due diligence. I just think sometimes finances come into the question, and if you're not getting a 5-star can't miss NFL, you're not Amarius Mims isn't on a recruiting visit. You're not going to spend that kind of money, maybe, if you're Herb Hand, and again, that goes back to my trust in Herb Hand, which is implicit because of how long he's coached and how good his offensive line's been. I trust that he knows that, man, no, that guy's not worth it. Do not give him what he's asking for because he's not worth it. The guy on our roster, I can make him as good as him in 9 months for half the price. And we can spend more money on, say, a receiver from USC instead. Like, I do think there's some stuff going on there, too. I think I'm not saying you don't want to go get the best players available, but maybe they don't think he's that much better. It's not like you had a chance at a Remington Award winner. You know what I mean? Like, so I get what you're saying, though. I do want more bodies. I want at least one or two more offensive linemen from the portal. One that I know, and the Rice kid would be great. But I am more concerned, honestly, if you're going to talk about concerns, the defensive line right now, they've gotten, what is it, one kid, two kids? How many defensive linemen have they gotten?
Hey, man, come on, James Williams, buddy. James Williams is big.
That's it. Is there anybody else?
Well, like Deontay McCray from Western Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. And then, so is that the two that they've gotten on the defensive line so far? So 2 defensive ends.
Correct.
And then they got Daryl Jackson to come back, which is, again, that's the biggest portal get they've gotten so far. I would like one more defensive tackle at least. I would also like another defensive end that's, put up better numbers than the kid from Western Kentucky. I think at this point, defensive end and offensive line, I think, are the exact same import right now. They got to get better at both, and I think right now defensive line needs a bigger boost than the offensive line. I just trust that Herb Hand will put, with what he's got, with what's currently on the roster and what they've got in the portal, he will be able to find a combination of 5 guys that can do what he wants them to do and at least be serviceable to competent. That's not a great barometer. That's not what you want. That's not a great goal, is to just be serviceable. But when you were awful, to get to serviceable, I trust that he can do that with what's already on the roster. Now, they could get better, and you're always looking to get better. I don't think this defensive line right now, I trust Terrence Knighton. I trust Tony White. I just don't see the impact players other than Daryl Jackson and James Williams to say that they're going to be good enough. So I would like to get one more guy, at least.
Yeah. Again, Lee Hunter was one of the priorities, but he committed to Texas Tech. Texas Tech right now is going absolutely on tilt.
Yep. Good for them. Make it happen, Red Raiders. It's about time.
Let's just hope this is the last year. But let's hope this house settlement brings some kind of guardrails into play here. Speaking of defensive line, Patrick Payton, Corey. Speaking of teams that have a lot of money, apparently LSU. Berrien Brown, one of the top receivers that was out there in the market from Kentucky, committed to LSU. Florida State wanted him. Jamari Butler, edge rusher from Nebraska, not nearly as productive as James Williams, but a little bit more diverse in his skill set. Florida State wanted him. He commits to LSU. Patrick Payton ends up at LSU, along with, obviously, Destin Hill, who announced that last week. It's interesting to see the excitement from LSU fans. Is Destin still the player that you, I don't want to say fear, but maybe if you had to, what do we call it, handicap it?
Yeah.
Does Patrick Payton move higher than Destin Hill in terms of player that might leave you wincing once or twice on a Saturday this upcoming season, or do you still think Destin is the bigger loss?
That's a good question. I don't know, honestly, because I don't know what Destin is. I just don't know what Destin is, how healthy he's going to be. I don't know any of that. I just don't. I think that we know
do we know who Patrick Payton is?
That's what I'm saying. Don't we? Like, didn't he show who he was this year?
That's not fair. I feel like 22 and 23, like 2 out of 3 years that we've seen him perform, he's been really productive. And I went back and I scrubbed through and only looked at like 5 plays against Florida. And he did not look great, but he did not look to me like a lazy, not trying, good for nothing bum, which is kind of the rap that he has right now in Florida State circles.
Yeah, but he didn't look like a Jared Verse clone either. He didn't look like an all ACC caliber player at all. It just didn't. He just I was one of the, I was more disappointed in him than almost anybody else on the defense, honestly. In fact, there's nobody that I was more disappointed in than him in the way he played, and I don't know, man. I can understand why Florida State fans would have a bad taste in their mouth with the way he played this year, and maybe he turns it around.
All right, but that's all right. So Destin maybe just a notch ahead of him. Yeah,
I think with Destin, it's the fear of the unknown. Like, even if Patrick Payton reaches his ceiling, what is that? That's honorable mention All SEC probably, maybe. Destin Hill, we have no idea what that ceiling is. He could have 1,100 yards next year. I have no idea, none. Patrick Payton is going to start every game. He's going to have probably 5 sacks, 14 quarterback pressures, maybe a forced fumble or 2. That's what you're losing in him. Maybe he's a 6th-round pick or a 5th-round pick. Destin Hill, we have no idea. He might be first-team All-SEC. He also might not ever play for them. His variance is much wider than Patrick Payton. Patrick Payton, you lost a starting defensive end, but not a special defensive end. Destin Hill maybe, it's a small percentage, maybe has a chance to be special. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. We're back. It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Sip the juice. Corey, Monday, Friday shows, we think this week?
Okay, yeah, sure, buddy. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Just letting you all know. So if you don't see a couple shows this week, it's Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so the
And
college
spend
football,
it with your loved ones,
Yes.
everyone. Spend it with your loved ones.
college football playoff, 12 teams,
Yeah.
on campus, football. Incredible energy, we're told. Incredible energy. Although I'm like, I don't know. I think Florida State, 2000, is pretty electric.
Yeah, okay. All right.
I think Florida State, Oklahoma, 2011 was pretty electric. I'm sure, Notre Dame, USC 5 years ago. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a hater because we didn't get to host one. But it was all chalk. All the home teams won.
Yeah.
And Clemson rep the ACC with some, gave us some something to feel good about after what SMU did against Penn State. But the big narrative going into Saturday morning was the Indiana-Notre Dame game.
Yep.
Indiana, the final score not indicative at all about how lopsided that game really truly was, with Notre Dame just absolutely dominating them. And then people start getting into the conversation, well, hey, we told you they didn't belong. They didn't have a good strength of schedule, their metrics, et cetera, et cetera. And this was a bad thing for the sport. And then Saturday really didn't help stem the tide because other than the Clemson-Texas game, the other two games were blowouts. So 3 out of the 4 games were blowouts. And everybody lamented the fact that, these were non-competitive games and we've ruined the sport. Nothing else that we've done the last 18, 24 months has gotten the amount of angst and demand for change as 3 lopsided games on Friday and Saturday. Corey, your thoughts?
Yeah, what bothered me, honestly, and I know he's a punching bag, not just, trust me, it ain't just for Florida State fans anymore, but Herbstreit on Saturday talking about how Indiana didn't belong, yippee-doo, or whatever he said. You had 11 wins. Golly, that's great. They shouldn't have been there. They weren't deserving, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, man, have that same energy when Tennessee gets its teeth kicked in. Tennessee looked worse against Ohio State than Indiana did. If Indiana had a punter, that game was tied at halftime in Columbus. Indiana's defense is better than Tennessee's defense, apparently.
South Bend, you mean?
No, I'm talking about when Indiana played Ohio State at the end of the year. Indiana was in that game, and then their punter dropped a snap, and then he had a horrible punt, and the game was over at halftime, but literally because of the punter. They played more competitively against Ohio State than Tennessee did. And they didn't have 30,000 fans or 40,000 fans in the stadium either. But I just don't like the idea of they got beat badly, so clearly they didn't belong. It's like, man, this is sports. Don't tell me the result doesn't justify or not justify why that team got there. Teams get blown out all the time, especially in the college football playoff. That doesn't mean they didn't belong. And I really hate the narrative, Aslan. This is the point I wanted to get to. The only point I wanted to get to is so many people. I see it on Twitter, but I heard it at Corner Pocket, honestly, about how just from SEC homers. There aren't many at Corner Pocket, folks. Don't be alarmed. It's mostly Florida State people there. But talking about how did Indiana really have a realistic chance to win a national championship, or did SMU have a real? Why are they there if they can't realistically win the national championship? And I guess my point would be, look, man. The Falcons have a decent chance of getting to the playoffs this year. Not a great one, but a decent one. They have no chance of winning the Super Bowl. Does that mean they shouldn't go and play in the playoff game? Since when did we start judging whether a team should be in the playoff by if they could win the championship? Because then wipe off the first 2 rounds of the NBA playoffs. Because there's only about 6 teams in the dang league that could win the playoffs. Maybe less than that, and that's every year. So, yeah, man, you're right. Indiana and SMU aren't going to win a national championship this year. They did not have a chance to do it. Neither did Ole Miss. Give me a flipping break. They weren't going to win a championship either. So, what does it matter? Teams got to beat somebody in the playoffs. So the thought that Indiana getting housed by Notre Dame, and again, it was 27-17. I thought Indiana, their offense was a joke. Their offense wasn't very good, and I thought their coach scared. But they weren't blown off the field. It wasn't what Ohio State did to Tennessee, where it was like 270 yards in the first 20 minutes to 11. Like the kid threw a horrible interception, and then they give up a 98-yard run. And then they were chasing points the rest of the game. But anyway, they were no danger of ever losing that game, Notre Dame. But they also didn't embarrass them and push them all over the field. They didn't embarrass them like they did Florida State. So I guess that was my biggest number one. It's okay. There's two blowouts. SMU gets blown out because their quarterback basically just forgets how to play the sport. Unbelievable. And it was incredible. And then Indiana didn't play well and lost, by the way, to a really good team that's won like 11 games in a row. Like there's no shame in losing at Notre Dame. Like most people lose to Notre Dame. So judging teams because they didn't play well and saying, "Oh yeah, this fits my narrative. See, they didn't belong." It's just gobbledygook. It's like, man, teams are going to lose. I think Tennessee belonged in the playoff, Aslan. I do. I think Tennessee played well enough during this season, even with a 6-6 loss to 6-6 Arkansas, that I think they belonged in the playoff. That doesn't change just because they got embarrassed and humiliated in front of half their fan base in Columbus, Ohio on a Saturday night. They just played badly. But I think the mechanisms and the justifications for these teams being in the playoff are still sound. If Alabama wanted to be in the playoff, they didn't have to lose to Oklahoma 24-3. That game has to matter, and it did matter, and they got to watch other teams lose instead. So that's all. That's my soapbox. Kirk Herbstreit, every day he talks about this, comes off grumpier and grumpier. He does not appear to like college football anymore. He certainly doesn't like college football fans. And it seems more and more obvious that, and I don't know, I mean, I do know why. SEC is a big money league, and he gets paid by ESPN. They're in bed with the SEC, and I don't embed it. That's not even a pejorative. I just mean that's a big partner. He's a mouthpiece for the SEC, and he's trying to make sure that next year the SMUs and the Indianas of the world don't get invited. So 9-3 Ole Miss and 9-3 Alabama do get invited. See, they didn't belong. They got blown out. Well, what about Tennessee? Yeah, that doesn't matter. That's my problem. If you're going to hold the Indiana law, Indiana was 11-1 in the Big Ten. It's not their fault that Michigan and Washington weren't good this year. Michigan and Washington played for the national championship last year, if you guys forgot. They literally were in the national championship game, those two programs. They were both on Indiana's schedule this year. They both just didn't. They weren't nearly as good as they were the year past. That's not Indiana's fault. But they went 11-1 in the Big Ten, and you have an ESPN honk saying they didn't belong. Who cares? Big deal. You got 11 wins. Yeehaw, whatever. It's like, no, man, winning has to matter. And your precious 3-loss SEC team doesn't automatically need to get in over an 11-win Big Ten team. Are you kidding me? And their only loss was on the road to Ohio State because their punter can't catch a snap. And so they're setting the stage, is my point. And what my biggest problem was, is that was obvious from the jump. They're setting the stage for trying to get 6 teams in next year from the SEC. They want every 3-loss team to be in, and Kirk Herbstreit is going to do his damnedest to make sure it happens. I hope it doesn't, and if you're on Twitter and you see all the other national writers, they're calling it for what it is, which is bullcrap. They're calling it for what it is and calling Kirk on his nonsense and how stupid and hypocritical it is. But Herbstreit is the biggest mouthpiece and has the biggest platform. And he's going to sit here and make fun and mock Indiana for going 11-1 and losing at Notre Dame and saying they were outclassed and didn't belong on the field, and then not say anything about Tennessee getting worked by Ohio State from the same conference. But anyway, so now I'm done. But next year, don't be surprised when it's 6 SEC teams.
In case you were wondering, there had previously been 20, quote-unquote, first-round playoff games, 14 playoff, Corey.
Yeah.
Average margin of victory was 17 points.
Yeah. There haven't been a lot of great ones. Georgia, Ohio State was a great one a few years ago.
And the 4 games. So the first round of the new playoff of the 12 teams, this horrendous, and it wasn't good football. I mean, it wasn't captivating football. Clemson, Texas was okay, but I don't think you want to be batting 250 on this if you're spending billions of dollars.
That was an exciting game. But
19.2 points was the average margin of victory. So it was like 2-point difference.
And doesn't it stand to reason? Like, should we be surprised? Like, we had blowouts when it was the top four, but I'm saying we had blowouts when it was the top four teams in the country playing at neutral sites.
Yes.
Now you're taking 8 worst teams, or the 4 worst teams, you're taking 9, 10, 11, and 12, and having them go play better teams on the road in December. So why would it be more competitive? Like, this is but look, man, if the Falcons make the playoffs, they probably ain't beating the Eagles in Philadelphia in the first round, right? They're going to lose, and they'll probably lose badly. That's how sports work. It doesn't mean the Falcons don't belong, or let's just get rid of these games. No, man, this is what happens. A lot of times, better teams get like a playoff game, which is pretty easy. They can coast, and then the real games start the following round. That's what's going to happen with the college football playoff. It doesn't have to be, like David Hale said, they're not going to rest until they basically just have a 12-team SEC tournament, and that everybody's going to be complaining. They're going to take the top 12 SEC teams, and then everybody will be complaining that Mississippi State belonged to. Like that's where it's going to get. That's the only way Sankey will rest. And it's like, man, this isn't a referendum on the sport, and it's not a referendum on somebody's season that they got beat soundly in December on the road in a playoff game. This is college football. It's sports. It happens. You lose. There's going to be a loser and a winner every game. In the college football playoff, for whatever reason, most of the games are blowouts. And those have been in neutral site games. Well, now you're playing SMU. You think SMU's ever been in an environment like that? Of course that kid was a little bit overwhelmed and urinated down his leg. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be to that degree, but that was impossibly bad. But that's the sports. That's why you want a home playoff game, or you want to buy. So it's the way they pick and choose which games matter. Like the reason that people brought up Florida State not getting in last year was like they didn't want to see another TCU. Well, man, great, I get it. TCU got beat by 100 by Georgia. TCU beat Michigan the week before. But that was completely lost. They earned their right to the championship game. It wasn't like they just got gifted there. They had to beat Michigan, and they did. And then it's like that's forgotten. And then the Tennessee game will be forgotten, so you can get Tennessee in next year. But a 3-loss Tennessee team or a 3-loss Georgia team will get in next year, and they won't bring up the Tennessee games. They'll bring up the Indiana game, and they'll bring up the SMU game. And see, this is why we don't invite these lesser conferences. Man, it is the playoffs. It's college football. These teams have to play somebody in the playoffs. Occasionally, or more than occasionally in college football, they won't be all that competitive. Oh, well, the next games might not. I don't know that Arizona State's going to do a great job against Texas. Yeah. Does that mean what? What do you want? What do y'all want? Like this, teams have to play. You have to play somebody. And so, yes, that was my big. It's like all of a sudden they just want to blow everything up because these games were not competitive. It's like, man, just understand this might have been an anomaly. It probably isn't. More often than not, I think the road team is going to lose in the first round at an opposing site. Maybe not to that extent. They're not going to be that uncompetitive, non-competitive. But, I mean, this is sports, man. This is sports. People don't bitch when the Falcons are going to lose by 30 if they play the Eagles. If they get to the playoffs and lose by 30, people aren't going to bitch like, why are the Falcons here? Why aren't the 49ers in this game? It's like because the 49ers lost 10 games, man. They didn't get to go. Okay. So that's all. Okay. That's all. I'm done.
On the way out, Florida State hoops. ACC opener, not a great start. 14-point loss to Louisville, 90-76 on Saturday. 15 of 29 from behind the arc, the Cards were. Florida State, meanwhile, 8 of 20, which isn't too terrible.
That's not bad. That's good for them.
Yeah, when you shoot 40% from three, you'll take that. But when the opposing team shoots 52%, that's not great. Thoughts, takeaways, Corey, as the pivotal conference slate is upon us.
Well, here's my concern is that Florida State has played basically 4 teams with a pulse, maybe 4.5. Louisville Like Louisville was 6-5, but their 5 losses were to all top 15 teams, including 3 of the top 5. Like they have a crazy non-conference schedule. Tennessee, who's number 1 in the country.
Anti-Indiana, some say. The anti-Indiana.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They loaded up. They belong. I don't care what they do the rest of the way. Put them in the tournament. They played some hard teams. That Louisville's I think that's a good team. I think they're better than their record because they played such a hard non-conference schedule. They lost all those games against those good teams, but they were competitive in a few of them, more than a few of them, and they're certainly better than they were a year ago with Kenny Payne as the coach. But Louisville, Florida, LSU, and NC State. Those are the 4 best teams that Florida State's played. They're 0-4 against those teams. In 3 of those games, I don't think NC State counts, but in 3 of those games, their defense just got obliterated. Louisville, I mean, look, man, they scored 54 points in the second half. They hit 6 straight threes at one point, and Florida State will just keep leaving guys open. He is not going to change the way he plays defense. That has become apparent here in year 29 or 36 or whatever we are, the Leonard era. So they're going to pressure you. They're going to make you drive. And then they're going to kick. They're going to collapse on a guy in the paint. He's going to kick it out. If you got guys that are hot and are making shots, you're going to win, and Florida State's going to lose. If you can get the passes off. Like Florida State lives by getting deflections and turnovers and block shots, and they weren't doing that. They forced, I think, 6 turnovers the whole game. Louisville just sliced them and diced them. And that was my biggest concern. I don't think when a team gives up 90 points and gives up that many wide open shots, I think the tendency is to think they're not playing hard. I think they played exceptional. I think they always play hard. I think this group really does play hard. It's just they couldn't stay in front of some of these Louisville guys. They're bad matchups, man. Malik Ewan can't guard out on the perimeter against point guards and shooting guards. He just can't. He tries. He's trying. They're all trying. It's just you're asking him to do something he probably can't do, which leads to an open 3 or a layup. And that's what Louisville got just the whole second half. Florida State just couldn't match them. And Florida State has 2, I think, very, very good offensive players in Jameer Watkins and Malik Ewan. They don't have a third, and that was evident too. I don't know if they're ever going to have a third guy step up, but it would be nice if they got one because it's too much for Watkins and Ewan to have to do it by themselves. But, yeah, look, man, they're at the point now they're going to have to win the ACC tournament to get in the NCAA tournament. They have one chance, I think, at a marquee win because this conference is down again, and that's Duke, at Duke, and that's just not going to happen. They're not going to beat Duke. So they're going to have to somehow get on a run. I assume the ACC tournament is in North Carolina, but I don't know. Wherever the ACC tournament is, they're going to have to get on a run and win it, or it'll be another year without being in the NCAA tournament. And then, this is how bad this game was, Aslan. I was like, all right. I was all bored. I was like, man, this is a pretty fun team to watch. Now I'm convinced they have to win the ACC tournament to get in, just in one game. But it's the truth. They're 9-4. They played 4 good teams. They're 0-4 against them. They're also 0-2 in the ACC. And these are the games they have to win, the home games against Louisville. So anyway, they're going to have to win the ACC tournament. They won't. They're not going to make the tournament again, and then you're going to have real discussions about, man, is Leonard back? Is he coming back? Do we know? Like, what's going on with this program right now? Because it is in a lull. I think they're more fun to watch. I think they're easier to cheer for. I think there's some better talent than I thought on this team. They're better than I thought they were going to be. They're not going to be good enough to make the NCAA tournament. And what are we doing here if you're not making the NCAA tournament? What's the point of all this? If you're not even really have a chance, you're not even in January yet, and the only way it seems like you can make the NCAA tournament is if you win your conference tournament. You might as well be in the Ohio Valley if that's the only way you can make the NCAA tournament, which is where Florida State is right now. So it's a bit of a bummer, but they're fun. I was telling people on Saturday, it's like, you know what? They have 2 fun guys to watch on offense. They do play hard on defense. They also give up a lot of open shots and points, and they play a fast pace. It's entertaining at least. It's a fun game. They're not going to win a lot. They're not going to win enough to get to the NCAA tournament probably, but at least it's more enjoyable than watching like 61-49 losses, in my opinion anyway. But yeah, it's 7 weeks till baseball. 8 weeks, maybe, till baseball season.
Obviously, I goofed when I said ACC home opener for the Noles was against Louisville. Next up for Florida State, Syracuse comes to town on January 4th.
How about that? Isn't that crazy? They get 2 weeks off.
Take a breather, boys.
They just get to sit in this loss for 2 weeks. Leonard said they're actually getting a week off completely to go home to enjoy Christmas, and then they'll come back and they'll have a week to prepare for Syracuse, which is not good. Syracuse is not good this year either, so you got to win that game.
No one in this
really, you
conference
don't.
is good anymore.
No, it's Duke. Duke's it. And again, it's because the SEC is paying for all the best players.
Crazy.
That's what they're doing.
ACC tournament will be in Washington, D.C., Capital One Arena. So
hey, Leonard used to coach there, man.
Yeah.
That's his old stomping grounds. He was there for less than a year, but that's his old stomping grounds. Maybe they can make some magic happen in Washington, D.C. and get to the tournament.
All right, that is a wrap for us. I would assume Jeff Cameron show's dropping 1 to 4 o'clock. But
I
don't
would
wanna put
think he's
pressure
in
on it.
town. He's in town, but if not, there's no headlines on Tuesday because that's Christmas Eve. But I do think Jeff. I assume Jeff will have a show. If he doesn't, just know who's here for you. You know what I mean? We have a show because we care. But I assume Jeff cares too, and he'll have a show as well.
Jeff cares. And shout out to all of you, along with Jeff Cameron, the annual giving show.
Yeah, how about that? That was awesome.
I mean, $18,000 was the last figure I saw.
Yeah, for the Guardian Ad Litem. It's such a cool, and that's something that's near and dear to Jeff's heart and has been since I've known him. Yeah. But to raise $18,000 in one show for the Guardian Ad Litem is just awesome. That's really cool.
Love you,
Florida
folks.
State fans, man. Yeah. They're good people, good folks.
Which, by the way, if you don't know what Guardian Ad Litem is, it goes towards, what is it, children that are without families, kind of go through the foster process, I think, Corey, maybe? Not.
I mean, I don't want to guess.
No, all right.
Well, let's hold on.
I know it's for kids in need, which we all love the kids. So shout out to everybody who donated, everyone that came out to the bowling event the other week. It represents abused, abandoned, and neglected children in the community.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
Y'all love Christmas. Everybody deserves to have a Merry Christmas, especially the
Yeah.
children. So this goes a long way towards doing that for kids that have not had the greatest circumstances. So thank you to everybody who was part of that. We'll drop a show probably on Friday. Don't think anything might be coming between now and then. But you never know.
All right. Hey, enjoy Jacksonville, buddy. How long are you going to be there?
Just for like 2 days, and then I'm going to head home for...
You're spending Christmas in Jacksonville?
No, I'm going to head home on New Year's Eve. Or sorry, Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. All right. Good, man.
So we're doing Christmas today.
Oh, man, that's sweet. It's good. I like what's going on
here.
here.
She's baking cinnamon rolls.
Oh, my gosh.
Life's good, bro.
Aslan's
Life's
domesticated.
good.
It's
Life's
domesticated.
good.
It's great, man. It's great. We're all cheering for you, buddy.
The worst thing happened to you that could happen to a fighter. You became domesticated.
Don't screw it up.
I'll try not to.
Don't screw it up.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Go to Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Not too late to do some last-minute Christmas shopping. Stay connected to warchant.com. I mean, there might be visitors on campus today. Who knows? I guess maybe recruits, what they want for Christmas are bags, and they get that by visiting campuses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay connected to warchant.com. Premium recruiting board. Michael Langston got you covered. I think Matt Lacerre will be back. He was actually in Austin watching the Longhorns and Tigers.
Yeah.
Must be nice, Matt Lacerre.
Yeah, man.
For Cora, I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you soon. Hit the thumbs up on the way out.